Hey guys, what's up? It's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel, Real Talk Recovery, where we talk about recovery from addiction and I share my life with you. Today, you guys, is a little bit of a different upload for me, but I wanted to come on and talk to you guys and share a little bit of a story with you guys and my experience, because I've gotten some comments on my videos from some women that are going through a struggle right now. So really quickly, before I start this video, if you don't mind, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below and let me know if you know anybody who's been through this situation that I'm about to talk to you guys about today. If it was a friend, your own mother, you yourself, and please share with me what happened and what you had to go through to get to the other side. So what I want to talk to you guys about today is my experience with Child Protective Services. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but in 2015, my son was removed from my care by the Department of Human Services, Child Protective Services, here where I live. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a backstory of why that happened, and then I'll talk to you guys about my experience and what all happened and how I had to go through it, because it wasn't easy, okay? So in 2015, let's back up to 2014 when my son was born. When my son was born in 2014, you guys, I was under the influence of methamphetamine, methadone, Xanax, and roxycodone. I gave birth to my son, and at that moment in time, the only way I can explain it to you guys is that God performed a miracle in my life, and my son was born completely clean, completely perfect. He scored very high on all his APGAR tests, and he was sent home with me. And that day I went sober, and I tried to stay sober, and I made it 3 months. I stayed sober for 3 months, and then I relapsed. And when I relapsed, you guys, I was so full of shame and guilt, and I didn't know where to turn. And that's not an excuse, but it just is what it is. I didn't know what to do. I was a new mother. I was afraid of my son being taken from me, and I knew that that's what was going to happen. So I hid it, and I tried to hide my addiction, but I could not hide it from my family and my friends, because my family and friends knew me. Well, in 2015, my best friend called CPS on me. And she called CPS, and they came to my house 3 times. Okay, they came to my house 3 times, and I guess I wasn't here. And on the 3rd time, they left a letter on my door. I got the letter, and I called them immediately the minute I found it. And I called them, and they asked me to come in and give them a urinalysis. And I came in, and I took a drug test, and I failed it for benzos and roxys. Okay, benzos and opiates. At that time, here where I lived, there was a law that they didn't take your kids away, or unless you were on methamphetamine. So I thought, they told me, we're not going to take your son. We're going to put in an order of protection, and you'll be able to have your son live with you. You're just going to have to, pass drug screens, go to treatment, get a job, and show us that you can provide a stabilized life for this child, right? So I was like, okay, I can do that. Then they came back to my house the next day, drug screened my husband, and at the time, me and my husband were not married, so we were just boyfriend and girlfriend, and he failed for benzos and opiates also. Well, the state didn't feel comfortable leaving my son in our custody, so they removed him from our custody, and he went into foster care. Right at that moment, you guys, I left and I went into detox that day that I handed my son over to Child Protective Services. In that experience, the changeover and giving my son over, it was very emotional. I tried not to cry because I didn't want to make my son upset. But my son was 2 days before he turned 1 year old. I packed up all his clothes, and I drove him to the place, and I dropped him off, and I left, and I asked them, I said, please take me to detox. Take me to detox right now. And they took me to detox. I went through treatment and I came out, and that's when the work started. That's when I had to start working on, you know, gaining employment, gainful employment, like employment where I was actually making money, stabilized housing, transportation, daycare options, parenting classes, 12-step classes, therapy for me, okay, and my son. And I had to get all these things done and do them throughout the whole course the whole course of time that my son was in the state's custody. We tried to petition for my son to be able to live with his grandma and grandpa on my husband's side, but the state denied it because they said my husband's parents were too elderly, too old. So my son ended up going into a stranger's home in foster care, which really, I was so scared, you guys, but I look back on it and it was the best thing that happened, because the family that Nate went to go stay with was so kind, and we still talk to this day. They're just amazing. Well, while Nathaniel was in the custody of the state, we set up visitations. We set up visitations, and I would see him 2 times a week, okay? Every single week. I never missed a visitation. Me and my husband both went 2 times a week every week. And we did that for about 3 months. And after we did that, then they bumped it up to where we could have him and we could go to the park and stuff, right? And so we were going to the park, and we would take him to McDonald's, and we do all kinds of little fun stuff, right? And we did that for about 2 months. And then they bumped it up to where we could have weekend passes, and Nate could come and stay the weekend with us. Nathaniel doesn't remember any of this. I worked so hard to get my son back, I work really hard to provide amazing things for him, like a nice, beautiful room, toys to play with, brand new clothes to go to school, brand new shoes. He's involved in all kinds of extracurricular stuff. We got him a membership to this place where he can go out and exercise and do all these like fun things in this like big old giant place with mountain climbing. It's so cool. But the experience that I had while he was in CPS was the people that had my son, the family, were so amazing. And because they were amazing and I was willing to do the work to get my son back, we worked together so well. And I was open-minded, and I knew, my son loved me. Now, it was really hard, y'all, because he started to call the other lady like mommy and stuff. And I remember just crying and crying and crying and being worried that he was going to not know that I was his mom. But that didn't happen. He knew who I was. And I worked so hard, you guys. I got everything I had to do done. And, I ended up winning custody of my son back in 10 months. And we got to bring him home in 10 months. Child Protective Services at that time, they did the best they could, but it was really just a free-for-all. I had an amazing caseworker, but even she was overworked and underpaid. A lot of the times I would have to call them or drive up there to have them drug screen me, because they would forget to drug screen me every month. And I needed to have those clean drug screens for the court. There was some days where I would go in and have to wait 30 to 45 minutes just to get someone to piss test me. Because they were so understaffed. There was some times where my caseworker couldn't make it out to my house. And I'm like, I have to see you, because you have to come and look at my house. You have to make sure that everything's okay, because I'm trying to get my son back, But that she had so many cases open that it was hard. And she would forget about me because I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. My son could have been placed with my family, and they would have not had to worry about having to do all that stuff. But what the state wants to do is they want to get your children so that way they can get that money from your kids. You know what I'm saying? Now, there's a lot of instances where children do need to be removed from the home, where they're being abused, neglected, beaten, starved. And my son, I was using drugs and alcohol. So at that time, my son being removed from my care, that was a legitimate reason for him to be taken away, because I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and but I do think that there could have been steps before him being removed, and they didn't even give me those chances. Normally what they will do is they will give you a chance to, get sober, go to treatment, get the help you need, and your son, they can set up an order of protection where your son can stay in your home, but they still come in and check and make sure everything's right? But because of the age of my mother and father-in-law, and because my husband and I were both in active addiction, they decided that they took my son, and it was just a bad situation because they didn't have anywhere for my child to go. My son had to get jumped between 3 different houses before they found him stable housing. Okay, imagine what he went through, not knowing where he was at or what was happening. He had to go to 3 different strangers' houses, and then they had to put him in respite care because they had nowhere for him to go, until they finally found this nice couple in another part of Arkansas, 30 minutes away, where I had to drive and go see him. But you know what? I'm not complaining, because I got my child back and I worked my ass off to get him back. And I would never, ever put him in harm's way or a compromising situation where that would ever happen again. So after we worked with the courts and I got him back, I actually was offered a position at the Child Protective Services office, because they have this thing called parent partnering here where I live. So I've been back a couple of times now to go in and talk to the other girls who have lost custody of their children, to encourage them to get sober and change their lives. Now, I was seeing some comments below some of my videos about some of you ladies who have given birth to children while you were on Subutex, and that Child Protective Services was called by your doctor when you were giving birth, and you have been upfront and honest that you were on the medication, and your doctor knew while you were pregnant that you were on the medication, and then they call CPS. There is no reason why your physician should be calling CPS on you. Actually, if you have a Subutex doctor and they can write you a letter and say, this patient's underneath my care, they're on Subutex, they're prescribed this much, and they need to be, when they give birth to their baby, they need to be treated like a regular person and discharged like a regular person, and their baby needs to be sent home with them. Because medically assisted treatment is if you're doing that, it's better than you being on heroin and shooting heroin. And so Dr. B actually came on my channel about a week ago, and he was talking about this very same thing. There's no reason why you should be treated any differently because you are on medically assisted treatment. And if you are, and they do call CPS on you, you need to call your clinic and your doctor right away and have them call Child Protective Services and tell them, hey, they're under my care. There's no reason for them to be being, looked at, or their children to be removed from their care. It's really sad that that's what's happening to a lot of ladies, because that's a treatment, and I just can't believe that, people are doing this, trying to get these babies taken away from their mothers when their mothers are seeking the help that they need. This is a woman who is seeking help and trying to stay sober and using medically assisted treatment in a therapeutic environment, and then her child is being taken from her. That's complete and utter bullshit. That wasn't my experience, but I'll tell you this. If that was my experience, I would fight till tooth and nail, and I would get my own But I just want you guys to know, like, you can and you will get your children back, okay? You just have to you have to stay the course. You have to start making good decisions. You have to stay sober. No more hanging out with the same people, places, and things. Get yourself on track. Get yourself into some parenting classes, some therapy, 12-step fellowship, celebrate recovery, okay? And get busy and really work hard. Get yourself gainful employment and some some dependable transportation, okay? And work your butt off, because your babies need you and they deserve you. And I want to encourage any of you girls, if you're going through the system and you need any help or you want to reach out to me, I'm going to link below my email and my Instagram so you can message me or DM me anytime, day or night. But I wanted to make this video to let you guys know that, you know, it can be done, and do not get discouraged. And if you are someone who is having Child Protective Services called on you after you give birth because you're on Subutex, you need to get a hold of your doctor right away, because that should not be happening to you. All right, you guys, I love you and I hope you have a great day.